Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. If this is your first time joining us today, my name is Carrie Hunter, and I'm the spiritual director of the center. And we meet on Sundays, beginning at 10:30 a.m. with a meditation, and then have our regular service at 11 a.m. And that's in the Cook Street Village, at the Cook Street Village Activity Center, 380 Cook Street. If you'd like to join us live, we'd be happy to see you there, and I want you to know that we are observing all of the protocol that is recommended for groups like ours getting together. So today, I'm continuing with a series loosely based on Alan Cohen's book, I Had It All the Time. Wonderful book, and if you haven't read it, it's just a delight. There's just so much information in it. My talk today, while it's not totally taken from that book, has some of the thoughts in it that Alan has talked about, and it's called It's All in Your Mind. Isn't everything? And as I was thinking about that this week, and thinking about what my thoughts were as a small child, I was remembering that when I was about 4 years old, I thought I could do anything, no matter what. And I had had dreams of flying. And so I thought that I could actually fly in real life. And next door to me lived my aunt and uncle, and they had a chicken coop in the back of their yard. And of course, they raised chickens. And it wasn't very high, as I recall, but who knows? There was a ladder beside it. And I decided that I was going to, flex my wings and just see what I could do. So I climbed up the ladder, and I was standing there looking out, totally fearless. And I didn't lean forward like Superman to fly up. I just simply jumped and was flapping my arms like wings. And of course, I landed in deep grass down below. Didn't hurt myself at all. But I was so surprised because I thought for sure that if I just got up high enough that I'd be able to fly. Anyway, I had been looking at some of my cousin's comic books, and I couldn't read, but I looked at the pictures, and I saw parachutes in them, and I didn't have a parachute, but I knew there was an umbrella in the house. So I went and picked up the umbrella, and back I went, climbed up the ladder again, opened the umbrella up, and jumped again. And wouldn't you know it, I just fell to the ground again. I was fine, but the umbrella was toast. That was the end of that one. And I didn't know anything about gravity. I had never heard of the word gravity before. But I certainly learned that what goes up must come down that day. And I was curious about it because I was just so positive that I would be able to do this. Anyway, fast forward. And of course, when I was in high school in physics class, we learned about the physical laws on this planet. And we learned about gravity. And it was all pretty simple stuff. And then I got into this teaching. And of course, in this teaching, we are taught that our thoughts create our reality. That anything that we completely believe in, that we're passionate about, is something that we are creating with our minds, and we're creating all the time, whether we know it or not. So it's important to monitor our thoughts. But I started to think the other day, if I so passionately believed that I could fly, then why didn't I fly? If this is true, if what we believe is true, if what we think about, if our thoughts create our reality, then why couldn't I fly? Was this not my reality? And of course, I learned in high school that even with gravity, that it is different in different places. For example, it's one thing here on Earth, it's another thing on the moon. It's not nearly as dense, if that's the right word for it, on the moon. And if I were in a spaceship circling around the Earth, I would be floating and flying without any trouble at all. So there are specific laws that are for our physical reality here on Earth. And then there are the spiritual laws. And the spiritual laws don't vary. It wouldn't matter if I were on the moon or in a spaceship or if I were on Mars or wherever. The spiritual laws remain the same. And as I was thinking about that, I remembered a book that I have of Ernest Holmes that had for many, many years and hadn't read it for quite a long time. I think probably when I was a student in the early years I read it. It's called Love and Law. And I was looking at this section on the law and the word. And Ernest Holmes wrote, and I'm just going to read it to you so that, because at some point it sounds a little complicated, although it isn't. The law controls everything, absolutely. But we are not as apt to realize that the law itself is an effect. Now, when we're talking about the law in this teaching, we are talking about the law of cause and effect, that there is a cause for everything, and the effect is, is reflected back from what the cause is, from what we are thinking. And he says, did you ever stop to think that not only is this planet an effect, meaning it's the effect of something, it's not the cause, it's the effect, that it did not make itself. When you do, you will see it is governed by the law and made by law. But that law which governs this planet is also an effect. So the law is not an effect. It's not the same thing. The law did not make itself. The law is not intelligence. It is not cause. It is the result of intelligence. And that brings us back. And we say then, well, what is the cause? So what's the cause of everything? What is it that is creating not only our physical laws, but our spiritual laws? What is it that is creating, changing our thoughts into form? And he says, as the metaphysicians that we are, we claim that the word is cause. The word is the cause of the law, and the law is the cause of the thing, and the thing is the effect of the law, and the law is the effect of the word. Now that's a mouthful, and it's the kind of thing that if you have it in front of you, you have to read it a few times, or at least I had to read it a few times to really get what he was saying. And it means that this in practice is that the law is written into our own hearts, and that we speak the word, and the word creates the law, and the law governs the thing. The word was with God, and the word was God, and the word still is God. The word causes your blood to circulate and your food to digest. It's the thing that causes your business to succeed, the thing that makes the tide come in and go out, the thing that holds the planets in space. It's all the same thing. It is one and the same thing, but each separate thing is governed by an individual law. Each separate thing. There is the law of the buttercup. There's the law of the bean. There's the law that makes the sun shine. There's the law that makes the plants grow. There is the law that makes the wind blow, and the law that makes your heart beat. And each law is an individual law created for the specific purpose of doing that special thing. You can see then that the law is a creation of something that is higher than the law, and the law cannot help itself. It is coming to see that law is the result of intelligence. So basically, what he's saying in that kind of long-winded, fun paragraph, or at least it was funny to me, is that these laws that are created here on earth, and the spiritual laws which are in the invisible, are not laws unto themselves. They didn't create themselves, and they themselves are not creating. What created is what created them is an intelligence that is behind everything, an intelligence that is in, as, and through everything. And I call that intelligence God, but you can call it anything you want. It responds to whatever it is you want to call it. But it's not some old man sitting up in the sky on a cloud somewhere and judging people. It is the energy, the creative power, the creative force that is behind all things. And so that creative force, that intelligence, creates the law. And then we have the law of cause and effect. And so cause and effect come from an intelligence. That intelligence is what is powering everything into being. And I find that easier to understand, and it's something to really think about. And I got really close to it last night because I was remembering that a number of years ago I was at a retreat, silent retreat, and during that time we would emerge from our rooms for meals, and we would emerge every 4 hours to chant, even in the middle of the night. So it was a really special time. It was a really quiet, introspective, and reflective time. And I decided that it was a good time for me to reread the Science of Mind textbook. But I didn't start at the beginning. I, was leafing through and went to the chapter on what the mystics think. And as I was reading, all of a sudden I got really, really excited because Ernest Holmes, first of all, through all of our classes that we took and that I took, we were talking about the law of cause and effect, over and over and over again. We weren't talking about so much about what was behind it all. It was all about the law and how using that law creates things in our lives. But what Ernest Holmes wrote in the textbook at that point was, forget the law. The thing is, the law always works. It doesn't make any difference. It always works. And he said, forget the law and focus upon the word. And that gave me goosebumps at the time. And I just had this great aha. There are things that just happen normally, just as if I jump off the roof of my aunt and uncle's chicken coop, I'm going to land on the ground. I'm not going to fly. That's a law, and I don't have to think about that. I don't have to call it a law. It just simply is. These things are happening on a normal basis all around us all the time. And it's the same thing spiritually. Whatever it is that we're thinking, that we're deeply focused upon, we are beginning to create, and quantum physics is now proving this, that our thoughts create form. And the thing is, it's not just a fleeting thought that creates form. That's not going to really do very much. But the things that are the stories that we have told ourselves, the things that we've made up from childhood, about whether our lives are good, bad, or indifferent, whether our cup is half full or half empty, whether we feel loved or not loved, whatever those stories are, we are constantly creating from that perspective. And so if we don't like the way our lives look, then it's time to start creating again, right here and right now, with different words, and there has to be passion and belief behind those words, and we see those things as already done, because if they're done in mind, then they are starting to take form. But we can't slip out of that. If I want to have perfect health at 120 years of age, then I have to be doing things that are going to create the body temple, recreate it to be healthy and strong and vital at that age. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's abundance in life, whether it's a relationship, if you want a new home, a new car, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It simply is the way that it works. And it means that we have to start it right here and right now. And I noticed that after that retreat, and after thinking about the word, I started thinking about all the classes that I took in metaphysics, in Science of Mind. And I was doing classes 3 nights a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And Tuesday and Thursday nights, the classes were at 7:30, but for some reason on Wednesday night they were at 7 o'clock. And what I found is that when you really immerse yourself in the teaching, that you start to manifest things very quickly, sometimes instantly. That's more rare, but it does sometimes happen instantly. And as I arrived at class on that Wednesday night, and I was mistaken, it was about 20 past 7. I was going for 7:30, and all of a sudden I realized that I in fact was late. I saw the other cars in the parking lot. And I was really chastising myself, and I grabbed my books and I stepped out of the car. It was raining lightly. And I said, oh, I slipped up. And immediately I flipped backward. And I was still holding onto my books. And I fell to the ground, and my head touched the ground, but it felt like I was landing on a cloud. There was no impact of any kind. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't have a bruise. I just was astonished, and I got up and I thought, what was I just thinking? And I thought, the thought I had was, I just slipped up and my feet went out from under me. And to this day, I think it was a spiritual message to me saying, do you believe this stuff or don't you? You know, I'm going to let you get it right here and right now. It is really time for you to start being conscious, being consciously aware of what it is you're thinking. Handle your words with care. It's a really important thing to do. And as I got more immersed in the teachings as well, I noticed that my intuition became a lot stronger. And that's what you will notice. If you've been in this teaching for a long time, or even if you're just beginning, if you've been studying metaphysics for a long time, you start to realize that you're getting divine guidance along the way. You don't need to know where it comes from. It's simply there, and you can trust it. You know you can trust what you're thinking about certain people. You can trust which direction to go, even if it seems like the wrong direction. You just know, you have this inner knowing inside. And I was thinking how much animals have that. You know, they function so much with intuition, and we're not so good at it. You know, our intellect gets in the way. We're always thinking about, well, if I go that way, even though it feels like that's the right way, you know, it's longer that way. I don't know why I should be taking that route. Well, you know, and when I've done that to myself, I consistently find that maybe there's been an accident down that road and the traffic is blocked or something like that. That if I had gone the way that my intuition told me to go, that I wouldn't have had that challenge. And so we have to more and more trust that intuition. And as I was thinking about how animals respond to things, I was thinking about when I would sometimes house sit for Reverend Joanna when she was traveling, and I would look after her cat Magic. And, you know, Magic had his little routine around the house. He'd have his breakfast every morning, and if there was a sunbeam coming through the window, he'd be lying in the sunbeam and stretching, and he would sleep. And then occasionally he'd get up and he'd run around madly and furiously, and then he'd settle down again. And he just had this pattern to his life. But the day that Joanna was coming home, which would typically be by plane, Magic would eat his breakfast in the morning, and then he would go to the front door. And there's glass almost from floor to ceiling on the front door. And there's a curtain there, and he would push the curtain aside, and all day he would sit there at the door looking out the window because he knew that Joanna was coming home. And it was fascinating because he didn't do that at any other time when I was there, just the day that she was coming home. And I was thinking about my colleague, Reverend David Alt, who recently retired. Just the most amazing minister, pure love, just so gifted, so talented, and a young man. And I was thinking about a story that he told about his dog Ginger. Ginger was a golden retriever, and she was very, very old. And she had become quite infirm. She couldn't climb stairs anymore at all, and she was incontinent sometimes, and you know, just not responding to things the way that she had. But he knew that she still had a little quality of life. He loved her so much, and she was a loving dog. And his bedroom was up many stairs, and she used to sleep in a dog bed up there in the bedroom, but she could no longer do that because she couldn't get up any of the stairs. And so he made a special place for her on the main floor. And one night she had had an accident, and he cleaned up the puddle and decided that he would clean up or wash the floor the next morning and do it well. But he lit an incense stick to kind of mask the smell, and he went back up to bed. And he fell asleep. And a little while later, Ginger was at the side of his bed pulling at his covers. And he couldn't figure out what was going on. She was totally unable to climb up those stairs, but there she was. And then he could smell smoke. And he got up and he went racing down the stairs with her following him. And he noticed that the incense stick had fallen over and had landed on the drapes and started a fire. And he was able to put that out with a fire extinguisher. But, you know, he was absolutely stunned that his loving dog that could not make it up those stairs under any circumstances before then, knew that she had to get to him and had to get him downstairs because there was a serious problem going on. You know, animals are just, they're so amazing. When we think about these things, they do the impossible, or what we think is the impossible, all the time. One of my favorite stories is about a man named Lawrence. Lawrence, I was going to say Alexander, but that's not it. Lawrence, let's just call him Lawrence, lived in South Africa. He was an anthropologist. And he was very, very, very much an environmentalist. He looked after animals. He cared passionately about the animals. His name was Lawrence. It just keeps going out of my head, which is kind of crazy. Lawrence Anthony, that's it. I wanted to get that just in case you want to Google him. Anyway, when Baghdad was being bombed, he was really concerned about the animals in the zoo there. And so he went to Baghdad, and he arranged to have all of the animals transported from the zoo to South Africa. And they had quite a herd of elephants at the zoo. And so all of the elephants were moved to South Africa, and they were many miles from his home. They weren't on a wildlife preserve per se. They weren't fenced in. They were free to roam, but they were safe. And Lawrence died shortly afterward. And the day that he died, there was a parade of elephants, single file, that walked the 12 miles to his house. They had never been there before, and they circled his house to honor him. And that speaks volumes about the instincts. They somehow knew that he had saved them, and they were there to honor his passing. It's an extraordinary story, and there are all kinds of extraordinary stories about animals and whales and so on, and I won't get into more of them here and now, but it's just to say that animals are just so much more in tune with everything than we are as humans. And if we can but stop our busy minds from flitting around and can just go inside, go into what I call our inner GPS system, our God positioning system that is inside each of us, and listen, and really listen, then we can trust what it is that is coming through for us. We can examine our thoughts. It's a good time to examine our thoughts, just to look at the life that we've created right here and right now, and where did it come from? What thoughts can we attach these to in the past? And do we want to make a change? And if we want to make a change, then we have to do something different today than we did yesterday, or else everything's going to be exactly the same. We have to think differently than we thought yesterday, or everything is going to remain exactly the same. It's really important, again, to be consciously aware of what's going on for us. The world is absolutely ripe for this practice. What we're seeing right now is not what we call normal. And maybe normal wasn't so perfect anyway. But right here and now, we can start to create the new normal that we want our lives to be. The new normal where we have the freedom to move about, to be with one another again, unmasked, where we have the freedom to enjoy one another's company, where we have the freedom to be in our spiritual center without masks and without having to use hand sanitizer all the time, and without having to have our temperature taken as we go through, and without having to social distance to such a great degree, because we're doing that in our center, and it feels very strange. Energetically, it feels strange not to be sitting shoulder to shoulder with people we're close to and people that we've been with for a long time. And it's quieter because people are not kind of chattering and buzzing with one another. It's very, very strange. And so in this strangeness, it's important to remember the things that we loved, the things that we want to keep in our lives, and then think about the things that we want to change and do the work to change them. Do the work with our minds. Realize that there are spiritual laws at work here that are going to carry our thoughts and create form with them that it has already begun the minute that we state that it is so. We see it done in our minds. It is done in the invisible. It's a vision that we have. We call it the mental equivalent of what we're going to create, of what is about to be created. And that mental equivalent, as long as we keep focused upon that and not on something else, is going to start taking form until we create reality with it. What a good time to start doing that. And the important thing that we have to remember, the really important thing, is that it is all in our minds. Everything. And so it is. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're on our website, www.cslvictoria.org, you can hunt around on the website and find out more about us. And also, if you'd care to make a donation, there's a donate button there where you can just click on that and make one with a credit card if you'd like to do that. If you would like to send a check, you can see our mailing address on the website. If you'd like to send an e-transfer, you can send it to welcome@cslvictoria.org. It's contributions from people like you that keep us open, that keep us going, and that have allowed us to move into our lovely new facility and to be present with one another on Sundays and to continue to do services during this challenging time. We started up again a couple of months ago, and there's no looking back. And it's all possible because of people like you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here next week. And just remember, it's all in your mind. And so it is.